Hey everyone, welcome to the Hey Hannah podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Maya Fields, but to my friends and those who know me well, I'm just Maya. I'm a higher education administrator, a mother, and a wife of 14 amazing years. But above all, I'm a Christ follower. This podcast is a special platform created to honor the memory of my beloved daughter, Hannah. It's here that I have the chance to have the conversations that I never got to have with her, to share the wisdom and love I wish I could have passed on. It's a reminder to cherish the precious moments we're given and a testament to the power of healing, hope, and personal growth. If you're someone who's seeking personal growth, inspiration, and practical advice to build a solid foundation for a successful and fulfilling life, this is a place for you. Join me as we honor Hannah's memory together. Laugh, cry, and learn. Get ready for a podcast that is so much more than you could ever imagine. The Hey Hannah podcast, healing hearts, one conversation at a time. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hey Hannah podcast. I am your host, Dr. Maya, and I'm so glad that I have an opportunity to chat with you all again today and hopefully bring you some useful information that's just going to help you better yourself overall. We're always striving for that here, so I'm excited that we have another special guest with us today. We have Sarah Williamson, who is a coach and founder of Drink Less, Live Better. She's also the author of the best-selling book, Drink Less, Live Better. She decided to take a break from alcohol in 2019 for 1 year, and she hasn't gone back since. So I'm really excited to talk to Sarah. There is a lot of things that she highlights about what she's experienced since that process of stopping drinking, but I'm really interested to chat with her because she mentions that she feels like it helped her become a better parent. And we are always striving here for all the tips to make our parenting better in any way that we can. So Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We're absolutely glad to have you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So just to kind of jump right in, you mentioned that you decided like there was no rock bottom, there was nothing going on. You just decided like I'm going to take a break for 1 year from alcohol. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and how you feel like it affected your social life? Because, that's still going on as well.
Yeah, certainly. The point at which I was running up to deciding about giving alcohol a break, I was recognizing that there were some things around my drinking that were starting to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And whilst I would say to you, I did not have a physical dependency or addiction to alcohol, I definitely recognized that I had emotional things that were pulling me into drinks.
Yeah.
That I did. At the end of the day, we're cooking dinner, we're changing gear because we're going from the work day into the evening. Kids are in and out clubs or sports or eating at different times, whatever the coordination is doing, feels like doing. I recognised that I was very often in a bit of a state of overwhelm, and pouring that glass of wine whilst cooking dinner felt like that kickback moment where I was still in my house with my family and doing what was necessary. But I recognised that what I was really doing was showing my children that this is a way that normal and functioning adults relax at the end of the day. Actually, I believe so much of our parenting, we can tell our kids anything we like. We can ask them, we can tell them great stories, we can find all of these different ways to communicate. But modelling, for me, is so important. And if I am going to be telling my children one day, I don't know, we could pick any number of things, drugs, alcohol, any number of different behaviours, and be talking to my children about why some of these behaviours as teenagers might not be helpful or useful. I can't be there then drinking my own glass of wine whilst I'm having this conversation with them. So it really was, I guess, an unravelling over a period of time that I was having these types of thoughts and then putting the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together and recognising I want a really an enjoyable social life. I want to be able to connect with my husband at the end of the day. I want to be able to go out for dinner with my girlfriends and have a great time. And questioning what role then does either alcohol play or not play in my life, and actually what are the activities that I'm doing where I'm actually using alcohol as the tool to be able to enjoy the activity, because perhaps actually in the first place I might not have chosen that activity, but the alcohol makes it more bearable. There were some really uncomfortable realizations along the way. There were.
Yeah. You said something that just really was like an aha moment. It's kind of mind blown. You said you were modeling a behavior to your children, saying like, this is the way that adults unwind at the end of the day. And we don't even think about that. And it was just like, you're absolutely right. But kids pick up on just things that you don't have to tell them. It's just the little things that you do. Like my husband and I, we make coffee every morning. And so they're like, I want coffee. They beg for coffee. They don't even know what coffee tastes like. But you're absolutely right. It's true that we're modeling those things and we don't even necessarily do it intentionally.
No, of course not.
Did your kids ever mention anything before you stopped the drinking? Like, oh, they just noticed, or like, oh, it's wine time or something like that? Or this was a totally something that was internal that you wanted to work on?
My kids never articulated anything about my drinking other than, they might have said at the table, oh, yes, wine is for adults, not for children, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I remember birthday when I probably would have been, let's say about 39 or something, a few years ago. And I glanced across the kitchen counter at my birthday cards, and pretty much every single one was either a glass of gin and tonic or a bottle of fizz or a hurrah for gin or any number of those kinds of cards. Yeah. And I sort of had this moment where you and I can go and stand in the gift shop together and we can look at the cards for women who are turning 30, 40, 50 or 60 and struggle to find a card that does not have alcohol on the front of it. And we can be in that same gift shop and we're looking at those cutesy little wooden signs that say it's wine o'clock somewhere, or, all of these fridge magnets, the mummy tumblers for, this mug might contain coffee or wine, all of this marketing. And what are those messages that our kids are taking in? And it was only this year, I was 47 this year, and I happen not to have had a drink for 5 years. And this was the first year that all of my cards had either dogs or cakes or rainbows or none of the wine on it. And I thought, oh, that's good, because I am outwardly shining in the world, being who I'm being. And I hope that when I'm no longer on this planet, people would think of the things, well, you don't have any control over what people are going to think about you, but I'd far rather people have me in the back of their head.
Yeah.
I'm not on the planet, when I am on the planet, as being somebody who enjoys bright colour and enjoys conversation and enjoys connection, and that whole alcohol bit is just not a part of my identity. Yeah. People aren't going to be thinking, oh good, it's something about Sarah and here's another glass of fizz. I would like to think that we are all so much more than that, but alcohol is marketed to women in a really insidious way, and I'm glad now to be able to see it for what I think it really is, and for my kids to live in a household where alcohol is no big deal. I don't drink, but my husband does drink beer from time to time, so it feels as if for my kids they're not growing up where alcohol is either demonized or held in really high regard. I'd like to think of it as a neutral, non-exciting subject.
That's so true what you said about it's heavily marketed, especially the one. And I thought about the tumblers. You do see the signs in the cards. It's just all throughout culture. Do you feel like during your process or even now, like you face any type of opposition with your social life with not drinking? Like you go to a party, it's like, okay, I used to have wine when I come here. Like, what do I do now? Everyone's drinking. Or your friends maybe like, you know, you don't want to drink anymore. That's not going to be any fun. Did you experience any of that? And if you did, how did you navigate that space?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And it's one of the points that really stopped me from actually making the decision to do it in the first place for quite a long time, because you naturally worry about what other people think and what other people are going to say to you. And I think initially my concern was one around people asking that why question, when, of course, I can say to you, we don't owe anybody else in the world any explanation of our behaviour. We can crack on and choose whatever feels right and good for us. We don't owe anybody any justification. But people are so curious when you would choose not to drink. And so that whole thing about my drinking wasn't causing anybody else in my life a problem. And I use the word problem lightly because, you know, one person's problem is another person's not problem. You know, there are big scales of,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
versus not. And so I was not, you know, having any drink driving offences. I was not losing my job because of alcohol. I was not blowing up my relationship. That whole thing when my friends were saying, but you're no worse than the rest of us. You know, why are you choosing this? And one of my best friends, absolutely classic line from her, I've been vegetarian for about 20 years. And so when I decided about 5 years ago, I was just going to run this alcohol-free experiment for a year, she said to me, Sarah, why do you have to be so extreme with everything? Can't you just drink a bit less? And she followed it up with, you're making all of the rest of us feel rubbish, which is so true, isn't it? We make a decision for ourselves and then we unintentionally hold this mirror up to people around us that we didn't intend to shine any light for them.
Right.
The decision for us, but a big part of our tribal identity is about giving each other permission to behave in a particular way. And if you withdraw from that behavior, you are then, perhaps not consciously, but causing other people to question perhaps their behaviors, which was really uncomfortable, really uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it sounds like a large part of what you had was a self-reflection period. And you touched on, you know, everyone deals with something different. Alcohol may be something that you don't care about, but you may care more about smoking or whatever it is. Everyone has their own thing that can be in opposition. But a lot of times when you change something, especially like, okay, well, I stopped drinking, it causes other people to have to do that reflection as well. And sometimes we just don't want to do it. It's uncomfortable. It's like, I don't want to change anything. I like being, you know, I like staying in this comfort place. So it does cause other people to reflect also. And it's kind of, you know, it's unintentional. You don't necessarily mean to do it, but it's like you're running into it. So after this process, you wrote the book and you continue to help other people with making steps towards a different life. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and that process?
Yeah, sure. I had been working up until 4 years ago in local government, and a huge part of my job was coaching and mentoring people about their substance use and misuse, whilst never considering my own for a single second. I was in that glorious position of, you know, listen to me, follow my instructions, but don't watch what I'm doing over here. I have the wherewithal now to recognise the irony of that situation at the time. And so all of those professional years spent working in that field, and then having a time in my life where we were going through a transition at work, the opportunity became available for me to take redundancy. I had already set up my coaching business on the side and started coaching people one-to-one at that point, still using all of my obviously professional skills, knowledge and qualifications, but actually then having the ability to talk about my lived experience.
Yeah.
That one-to-one coaching, that opportunity to really support people to reflect on their behaviours in a place of non-judgment and in a place where we have the most amazing conversations that are often about values. And if I were to give you an example of that, and, family is the perfect example, really, to talk about parenting, to talk about all of the ways in which we nurture our children, the great care we take over, perhaps family nutrition, making sure everyone's hydrated. Are people getting outside on a regular basis and moving their bodies well? And that idea that we might, in a midlife place, be thinking about drinking the green smoothies and doing the yoga and taking the supplements. And then when we start to question and recognize the toxin that alcohol is, the depressant that alcohol is, the carcinogens that alcohol contains, and start sort of being prepared, I suppose, to see the truth of it and looking at how this lands and feels within the family unit that we are really carefully and lovingly curating, that's where those powerful conversations really matter, because it feels so often like we have behaved in a particular way just because it's always how we've done it, or because it is how we take the edge off the day, or because it is how we relax, or, fill in the blank here. I recognised there was one particular Friday evening, and it would have been about 8 p.m. Everyone was home from their activities. My husband and I were in the kitchen, and the kids were sort of bouncing in and out and chatting and doing their own things and whatever. And I was drinking this glass of wine, and I had this thought, this is all of my dreams come true. I am a woman married to a man I love in a house in a lovely town with these 2 children and a dog. This is everything beyond my wildest dreams. And at the same time, the truth was also, I am overwhelmed. I am exhausted. I don't know what to cook for dinner. I am not knowing what I've got to tackle on my to-do list this weekend. Both things were true at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was using that glass of wine to really check out ever so slightly. And yet the people who I loved most in the world want you checked in that moment, not checked out. And it's the disconnect that it causes with our families instead of the connect that I feel really delighted to be able to talk to people about, and really, I guess, shine a little bit of a light on the real truths that we can find for ourselves and really enjoy.
The way you said that, both things can be true. And I think it's important for people to hear that and not feel like their situation is an anomaly. You can feel like you're living the dream, but it's also okay to admit you're overwhelmed, or like, I need to fix some things in these areas. Both things can be okay. And I think sometimes we get the impression like, if I'm overwhelmed, then my life isn't right. These aren't the things I wanted. And so I'm really glad that you said that, because I feel like it gives others permission to be like, okay, this can be true for my life as well. And you mentioned the disconnect that you felt with alcohol, like you're disconnecting most from the people you love. And it made me think, because again, we mentioned alcohol may be nothing to some people. They not necessarily a struggle, but we do that even with other areas of our life. And we do need to reflect on, are we disconnecting from the people that we love the most, with our cell phones, with our, TV? Our kids are trying to talk to us and we're having the other distractions. There's other things that have us disconnecting from our family. And sometimes I think we need to take a time to reflect and just have that reflection period to figure out what are those things and what areas do we need to change so we can connect with the ones that we love most. I am curious, Sarah, in all of your years of experience, when people figured out like, yeah, I need to make some change or whatever it is, I want to reposition myself in some area. What has been the biggest struggle that you've seen that stands between people actually, the desire to change, and them actually making the change? What's been the roadblock or the biggest struggle that you've witnessed with people?
That's such a great question. I think if I were to, the answer that feels like the straight off the tip of my tongue answer is the one about judgment, and is the truth of people worrying about what other people are going to say. Because if we choose to take a break from alcohol for however long it's going to be, or choose to drink significantly less, or choose, I'm just never drinking again, whatever feels like the most expansive and most joyous goal or intention for you. Worrying about that place of, but people are going to think I had a problem with alcohol, and people not enjoying the thought of judgment around, we hear about people having to stop drinking because there had to be an intervention or they had to go to rehab. The decision was taken out of their hands. The power was removed from them. And all of that looks so dramatic in the movies or on the TV shows, or you hear that story of somebody somewhere in the community or whatever. And people, shake their heads and feel sorry for them. And I think then there's a lot of guilt and shame and a lot of non-communication that goes on, a lot of stuff behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And so if we can remove some of that stuff about the worry of judgment, and certainly I would say there's judgment on two levels. The one that we think about is what other people are going to think about us. Also, the judgment that we put on ourselves. Because, one of the things that was knocking around in the back of my head was, now I've ruined the fun for everyone else. If I'm no longer going to be the first one on the dance floor or whatever, I've ruined the game. And actually, if we can get to a place of really addressing the point of judgment, I think that probably is if not the biggest barrier, then certainly the one that requires the most careful handling and unpicking and getting to the root of, because there'll be all kinds of stuff caught up in there that will be around friendship groups, that will be about family, that perhaps might be about childhood. It doesn't ever seem to be a one and done thing, and its judgment, I would say, is certainly something that I have a conversation with pretty much every client about. And there's other things that other people, are common with some groups of people and other things that are common with others. But I'm pretty sure judgment is right in there for pretty much everyone.
I can definitely see that. That's just it. That judgment factor from you judging yourself or worrying about what other people are going to think, it just kind of trickles into all areas of our lives. So I can definitely see that. But we do know that every problem has a solution. And I love that you are coaching from a place of I've been there and look how I've been able to do it, and you can do it too. And I feel like it gives your clients, they're able to get to that level of vulnerability because they know like, okay, well, she's dealt with the same things. I don't necessarily feel like she's judging me. And you have some things, some answers, some solutions for them that can help them to get to a better place as well. So I absolutely love that. Sarah, we end every episode with the same question. So I want to ask you as we wind things up, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Or what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone that you deeply care about?
I think actually this is probably relevant to what I was just saying. With the deepest love and compassion, other people care less than we think they do. And we get really caught up in thinking people are thinking very much about us. Sometimes they're just not.
I love it. I love it. That's so true. Like people have so much going on their own. They're not worried about you. But it's true. We have to be reminded of that. They're not thinking about you. That's excellent advice, Sarah. Excellent advice. So if people want to connect with you, how can they find you? Are you on social media? Can you share your contact information?
Thank you so much. Yes, I am at Drink Less, Live Better on Instagram, and my website is drinklesslivebetter.com. And all of my resources and there's free resources on there and blog posts that people can read.
Wonderful. That is amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all the work that you're doing and all that you continue to do. I'm sure that you are definitely being so helpful to so many people out there. And I appreciate you just having the passion to continue to serve others, because that's always so helpful. And when people are working in a space and they're working with an attitude of service, you can definitely tell the difference when you're looking to actually help others as your primary goal. So thank you for all that you're doing. Hannah's Hive, I appreciate you all continuing to tune in. I hope that you've learned something from this episode and that you have found some resources that'll help you if you're looking to make a change or just, incorporate some different activities into your lifestyle. I'm hoping that you picked up some of those things from this conversation today. As always, I appreciate you all tuning in. I'm going to share our resources in the notes of the episode as always. And so, again, thank you for your time. And until next time, everybody, take care.
And that's it. I'm out of here.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Hey Hannah podcast. We hope that you found inspiration, insight, and encouragement in our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay connected with us, be sure to like, subscribe, and review the Hey Hannah podcast. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread our message of love and wisdom. You can also follow us on social media at Hey Hannah Podcast. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to stay updated on all the latest episodes, behind-the-scenes exclusives, and engaging content. And for those of you who prefer the visual experience, catch the video versions of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Just search Hey Hannah Podcast and hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. For even more Hey Hannah goodness, visit our website at www.heyhannahpodcast.com. There you'll find updates, bonus content, and join a community that embraces you with open arms. Your continued support truly means the world to us. Together, let's spread love, share wisdom, and honor every precious moment. Because here at Hey Hannah, we believe that life is meant to be lived well. Remember, a new episode of the Hey Hannah podcast is released every Wednesday, so mark your calendars and be sure to tune in. Thank you again for being a part of Hannah's Hive. Until next time, take care.
Entertainment. Entertainment.